Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blenderhead, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Thursday, December 29th, and it's getting warmer. It's ridiculous. It was over this past break. Obviously, I haven't done a show the past 3 days, right? Taking a small break over the Christmas holiday, whatever the hell. Here, at least in the Midwest, over the weekend, it was ridiculously cold. I mean, it was so cold. My house apparently is not as insulated as I originally thought, and even with the heat on, we couldn't get the temperature above 64 degrees. Like, that's how cold it was. It was 0 degrees outside, even here in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I had to wear my fleece in the house, and we had a space heater. It was ridiculous. And today, right now, it's 54. And then over the weekend, it's going to be like in the low 60s. Like, how does that happen? How the hell does that happen? But I hope you're staying warm now. It's warming up. It's warming up. We're heading into a new year. We're heading into 2023. Good morning to everyone in the chat. Suki Singh, Wataz here early as usual. Joe Mack, Card Fan, Bart B, Jay Simmons, Mr. Richard. Jay says it was so cold I went out to shovel the other day and it was 8 degrees and felt warm. Yeah, 8 degrees was warm, right? When the temperature got up to like 27 as a high, I'm like, okay, this maybe I put on shorts, but maybe I don't need the space heaters because the heating. Maybe maybe we could get this temp up to 68 or 69. Now we're nippy. Now we're at 72, 73. We're good. So that's good right now. But as we head into the new year, obviously there'll be a show tomorrow. It won't be MMA based, and then we hit back. That end of the NFL season. We got NBA going on. PGA will be coming back. What else do we got? EPL soccer. If you want to play it on Saturday. I'll be playing. I just wanted to take a look back, take a step back a little, and talk about some small changes that are going to come in the new year. Some small changes, a little change of direction, probably more a change in demeanor. And this is due primarily, I know that in the last week, or if you've been following me on Twitter, that I've been relearning poker. Okay, that's what I'm calling it, relearning it. Okay, back in 15 plus years ago, in the mid 2000s, I did play pretty much for a living, right, for 4 or 5 years, primarily live, and over a large sample size, I had a good hourly at the games that I was playing, right, which is not like the highest of stakes, but still decent enough, still decent enough, I guess. And through how I learned how to play, right, how I learned how to play poker was total immersion. Like, that's me. That's me. Like, that's my personality. I'm a total immersion person. I'm okay, there's this thing. I will be thinking about this every moment that I am awake, right, for 16 hours a day. And if I'm not thinking about it, I'm studying something, I'm watching something, I'm reading something. Even if I'm going to work, even if I have I would go to my day job as a web developer, and on the subway, I'm reading poker books. Again, this may be the 5th time I'm reading this book. I'm printing out hand histories and going through and making little checks and little circles and little question marks, and then going to the 2+2 forums and going through and learning from other people's hand conversations and stuff like that. And then going to Barnes & Noble and buying and pretty much at the entire poker section. Like that, I own the entire poker section. Because I don't care. This book looks kind of the same as that book. Who cares? I'll either cement information that I already know, so it gets even quicker and even more instinctual, or I'll pick up one little thing that maybe I don't do too much, right? I don't do this right. Maybe I have to think about this more. So that's how I am. I'm a total immersion person. Okay, so now I'm entering, relearning poker, playing more at my local casino card room, and I don't want to be a hypocrite, right? When it comes to when I talk about always be learning, right? There's always a way to get better. Don't think you know it all, that type of thing. And although in my first 2 sessions, I did well, and the exploits that I was used to at those level of games that existed 15 plus years ago still exist, right? But should I be taking it for granted? Should I be going, oh, well, the knowledge that I had from 2008, like, I'm just going to do what I did back then and never adapt, and just don't adapt. Don't assume that people may have gotten better. Maybe they play slightly differently, maybe the context of stuff. And then on top of that, is that maybe how I played 15 years ago wasn't the most fundamentally sound either. Maybe it was just I was playing against such weak opponents that I made that much money regardless, even though I may have 10, 20, a whole assortment of leaks, or not playing certain situations well, or playing too much like this, and too many hands in that spot, and too few hands in this spot. So, like, I'm coming from the attitude of, okay, well, I do have the basic concepts down, right? So, what hand beats what? Like, I don't need that, right? I don't need to, but the basic probabilities of, like, how many outs there are to a flush draw, right? How many hand combinations? How many ways can you make ace king? How many ways can you make a pair? And then you get into hand ranges, right? And what percentage of hands exist in those ranges, and then position. Like, some of those I consider to be basic poker concepts to when you play. But, like, I don't necessarily need, like, to go through all of that, although I will get a little bit of a refresher. It's like, from there, it's like, now how does everything interact with one another? With, this happens, and then this thing, and which weaker range versus stronger range, position versus position, 3-betting frequencies, things like that. Like, that's came almost instinctual to me 15 plus years ago. So I can't assume, I don't want to assume, that my instincts from 15 years ago, when they kick in, are, like, fundamentally sound. They may be still, I may still be playing against as bad of opponents as I did 15 years ago. And that's why I could, run over a 1-2 no limit game sometimes. But maybe it's just right now, it's short-term variance, right? Maybe I wasn't playing very well at all, but I just happened to get the right cards in the right spots, make a hand, and bust someone, or pull off a bluff where I probably normally should get called there and don't get called in that way, not that small percentage of the time. So short-term variance, it could be anything. Now, what does this have to do with DFS? You go, Jordan, you're talking about poker for the first, 6 minutes of the podcast? Said, well, in this guise of relearning poker, now I'm going, okay, it's 2022 coming on 2023. It's like, let me immerse myself, right? Okay, what vloggers, YouTube channels, podcasts, there are training sites. Like, let me watch it all. Let me listen to it all. Show me a podcast. I'll start from episode 1. Okay. And then some people recommended to me Bart Hansen. Some people recommended Jonathan Little, and they both have podcasts. And am I sure how great they are? It can't be that bad. They've been having a podcast for a long time, and I've been listening to them, and they seem like they know what they're talking about. I agree with most of the stuff they talk about. But then I look and I go, this guy has 550 episodes. Like, this guy's been doing a podcast for 10 years, right? And then another one, like, doing a podcast for 7 years. I go, YouTube channels, and it's like, oh, you want to learn how to play poker? I've been doing videos for 7 years, right? And some of them are like 60-minute, 90-minute videos where, like, they go through hand situations. They go through certain concepts, right? And a lot of times you go through, and a lot of times it's repeat stuff. A lot of times it is, because look how much content they're putting out. Now, on top of that, they typically have some type of structured way of learning. So, like, I've been approaching this show a lot of times with the total immersion mindset in my mind of, like, if you really, really, really wanted to learn how to play DFS well, you just take the DFS pregame show and start from episode 1 and watch all of them. That's what I did back in 2015 with DFS. So just watch them all, right? So from my mentality, it's like, why aren't you watching them all, right? So when questions come in where it's like, I feel like I've answered them like 47 times, It's like, well, if you've already started from episode 1 and you got here, like, why do I need to do this for the 48th time? But that's coming from my mentality, that total emergent mindset. But seeing now in poker, I'm looking, going, how the hell am I? What am I going to do? Listen to 550 episodes before I even step foot on to sit down at a table? I mean, this has become untenable, right? Yeah, maybe back in the day, or maybe 2015 DFS, you could get through enough of the content in maybe 80 or 100 hours, and now you're going to be looking for stuff, right? Back in 2003, 2002, you read 27 poker books. I mean, that's doable. Now with poker, I can't possibly see how you could do that, right? So I need a starting point somewhere, right? If I want unstructured learning, right? So there's structured learning and unstructured learning. So in unstructured learning, why should I be expecting structure, right? So if I'm coming in trying to relearn poker and go, I'm gonna start with this year's podcast from this dude or whatever, and maybe he still has 120 episodes, but at least that's something to start with, but not the past 9 years of stuff. Like, there's an entryway. And then, yes, it's going to be unstructured. It's not going to start from first or whatever. And you're going to hear things that are repeated or asked again and stuff like that. And I'll just pick them up unstructured. Like, here's a concept here. This may not be a full thing here. That may not be a full thing there. And then if I choose to go, I really need to learn the stuff that they talked about in this episode, I need to learn more of that. Where can I learn more of that? Well, what episodes do I listen to? No, you don't do that. Now you go to the structured learning. Now you go to the course. You go to the whatever, training, thing. They have a 14-part series and you get that, right? Well, that's very similar to what I do here, right? That's very similar, where the unstructured learning is this show. That's what this show is. This show is not supposed to be. You start from 2 years ago when I started the show, and now you got to this point, right? It's supposed to be that we talk about concepts and we go through things, sometimes on the day's slate, sometimes we review a past slate, sometimes it just comes from the YouTube chat, and it's an entry point that someone could just say, like, I've been playing DFS for a little bit, so I know the basic stuff, right? Right? We always say that there's some little learning curve in the beginning. Right, we're not going to teach you, well, what is a GPP and what is a cash game? Like, okay, we're not that basic, but it needs to be an entry point where you could come in and go, yeah, I know kind of the basics, but can you talk through this situation? And I could be like, well, if you want the most amount of structured learning, go get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, theoryofdfs.com, right? Go get the 15-hour audio masterclass, listen to that, right? Go through that, re-listen to it. Then after that, you get the Theory of DFS for advanced players, and you get the Excel tools, and you go through all that, and then now you're committed to a process, and now you're coming back to this show as you do your process, and you're hearing a lot of the concepts that you heard in the 21 hours, put in like real and much slower time. Of like, oh, here's a new person that doesn't understand this. Here's someone that is having an issue with a certain aspect and everything. That's very similar to now I'm listening to poker podcasts. It's very similar to that, where I'm just stepping in episode 470, and they're talking about the continuation bet sizing. And it's like, yeah, we're kind of starting in the middle, right? But it's like, okay, well, I think I got a handle of this. And then I listen to whatever it is, and maybe I have a question about it, but like maybe it's a question that's been asked before that maybe covered in episode 278, but how the hell am I going to find that? Now the answer should be either one, like get the course, right? The first thing is like, okay, if you want structured and you want to go through all of it, it's in this thing. But if you don't, I'm at least here for unstructured learning, right? And I've not been approaching this show well enough this way, right? At least in the past couple of months. Right? I've not been doing that, right? It's a personality flaw. It's me. It's not you. It's me. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat that are probably more like me anyway. I tend to attract those types of people where they are more immersed, right? They don't want the content to be dumbed down. They don't want to have to go over the same thing over and over again. But that's not everyone, right? That isn't everyone. So there are a lot of people that may come to the show earnestly looking to learn more. And when a question gets asked that I've answered 28 times, right? And I go, well, why don't you just watch the past shows? And like, I was like, whoa, what? I came here to that person. It's like, what are you yelling at me for? I came here for unstructured learning. Yeah, I understand you have a structured thing that I could buy. That's the whole point. That's the value proposition of the courses, right? But like, I'm here for unstructured learning, and this is where they've chosen to insert themselves into my content ecosystem. And I've not been servicing them. I've not been servicing them. So this is me. This is a long-winded way of saying that I apologize. I'm sorry. It's me. It's not you. I've been doing too much of, I don't want to answer the same thing over and over again when I should be answering the same thing over and over again. That's what I should be doing here. That's what we should be doing on the show. Mondays with James, that's more of a theory-based show where me and James talk about stuff, and you could be involved in the chat or whatever, but, more high-level stuff. Fridays, obviously, we do MMA because we here at RotoGrinders, we don't have any free MMA content, and that's, I play MMA very seriously, so do that on Fridays when there is an MMA slate. But Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays should be unstructured learning, right? Should it be that we cover the NBA slate that day? No, it doesn't need to be any of that. And a lot of the unstructured learning comes from the audience. What does the audience want? So what I want to do on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays is essentially it's always wild card, toss up. It's questions from the YouTube chat, questions that can be submitted. And I'm going to put on the bottom, we'll come up with a little banner that scrolls on the bottom to email in questions at theoryofdfs.com. Steve doesn't have to do that right now in the thing, but he could if he has nothing else to do. He's exhausted. Steve's exhausted, guys. Steve, the producer, Sosa, whatever. I always say, whatever. I like to just call him Steve, a real name. So always put on the bottom questions at theoryofdfs.com, where if you didn't watch the show that day, you want to listen later or anything like that, you could just submit. And if you email me today, will I answer a question tomorrow? No, not necessarily, but they'll pile up and I'll just go through every question. If it's a type of thing where, well, I kind of talked about the same exact thing last week, then who cares? And that's just the way it is. I'll find some way of maybe making it slightly different, or we'll use it in the context of the slate yesterday, or use it in the context of the slate today, and use it in the context of the tools here at RotoGrinders, right? Because a lot of the stuff we talk about, in order to utilize those concepts, it's probably more effective to do it via tools, right? You're utilizing an optimizer, you're utilizing projection, you're utilizing ownership, you're utilizing simulation outputs, you're utilizing all the stuff that we have here at RotoGrinders, right? So that's what I should be doing, right? I shouldn't be like, okay, well, I'm bored, so I don't want to talk about the same thing over and over again. That's a me problem. I shouldn't be doing the show then. I'm not being a good teacher. So to me relearning poker, I want to use not to, well, how does it relate to poker, to DFS? It's no. Me, in the process of learning from others, is showing me more how I could better teach you. So that's what I've noticed in the past week of how am I learning? How am I absorbing this information as I'm relearning poker? And yeah, I'm sitting there going, yeah, I may have some questions or clarifications that just these people have probably covered a bunch of times. But yeah, and then there's just, oh, well, if you could take this 14-hour course and go through it, right? But I kind of want to go over the exact situation that I have right now. So it's yeah, I know about that, and I will get that. But I have something to talk about right now. And from what I hear, these teachers are very good at going through that type of stuff without having any aspect of hey, we've been doing this. We've done this thing 600 times. So that's why I'm sorry. I'll be the better person. I'll be the bigger person here, right? You don't hear that much in the industry where people apologize. Maybe people apologizing for bad takes or something, a bad pick or whatever. But obviously here we don't do picks, right? We don't do that type of stuff. But I can at least apologize, even though there are plenty of people in the chat that get tons, even when I start scolding people, right? And they're probably still, hey, I'm not a perfect person. There'll still be days where I'm just not in the mood to go over the same thing again, right? And I may be like a little snippy, but I'll try to be way less snippy, and way more driven on unstructured learning that's guided by the audience. Okay, and if it's a new person, an old person, even if they're asking 2v2 questions, let's go through why 2v2s are bad, right? Why thinking like this is bad, right? And maybe people in the chat will be that are regulars here could help them out in the chat as well. So it's like going through all of this. It's like I want to be a better DFS teacher, right? I'm always trying to be a better DFS player, but the one thing I've not been doing this entire year is trying to be a better DFS teacher, especially since I think I'm good at teaching. I think I'm good when I'm good at it, right? When I could put together structured courses pretty well. I think I could do unstructured learning pretty well, unstructured teaching very well. But I need to get away from the fact that I may be a total immersion type of person, but most people aren't. And even if you were a total immersion type of person, it's 2023, and the amount of DFS content that's out there is absurd now compared to 7 or 8 years ago. So that's hit the thumbs up button if you could appreciate the fact that I'm being the bigger person, right? I'm trying to get kudos of being, to being enough of a man to say that I shouldn't be scolding people as much, right? And you should be submitting questions, and we should be going over. If people want to learn how to use the player groups portion of the RotoGrinders tools, I'll just go through it again, right? For that person, we'll go through it. What exactly is a projection? I don't understand median, mean, and mode. Fine, we'll go over that again, right? And hopefully, people in the chat will help along in the process if you're more advanced than that. So that's what I'm doing. Going through the YouTube chat right now. James Aguirre said, no, not Gus Hansen, but Bart Hansen. He does a podcast called Crush Live Poker, and Jonathan Little does poker coaching. These are they do a lot of coaching, right? Doesn't mean that they're the greatest players, no, but you don't have to learn from the greatest players. I think that the best poker writer is Ed Miller, and Ed Miller's probably mid stakes, very similar to like David Sklansky type of thing. Like someone that, unless you're looking to play on a world-class level, you're never going to, what they write about will get you to the point where any game that within reason that you'd be playing, you could probably be the best at, right? If you're playing in Hold'em, right, in No Limit Hold'em, if you're playing cash games, you could read Ed Miller and with experience and study, be one of the best, 5-10 no limit game, 10-25 no limit players, maybe something like that, right? Which are fairly big for most people. And same for limit hold'em. If you read the 2+2 books and you were a limit hold'em player, you could probably, if you studied and got experience, you could pretty much beat any 40 game up to 40-80, something typically. Past there, once you get to 81-60, 100-200, the mixed games, everything like that, then it gets a lot tougher. You'll find whales up there or anything like that. Maybe you need more study. I mean, this concept still applies. Just now you're adapting to a lot of good players and also a lot of different styles of play. But still, to me, remember, I'm a modest person when it comes to DFS also. So I'm a modest person when it comes to poker. So it's I'm not in this to I want to be the best player in the world. No, that's never my motivator. My motivator is I like the intellectual challenge that rewards me with money, and money that's worth my time, and a decent amount of money that I don't have to necessarily do anything that I don't want to do. Right. So it's the type of thing of can I play poker 2 or 3 times a week and come home at the end of the year on average with 30 grand? That may be my goal. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to learn in a fashion and play that's the case, right? But the same type of goal in DFS. I mean, that's kind of what I focus on here also. So I consider myself the David Sklansky, Ed Miller, that type of DFS teacher. No, I'm not the best DFS player in the world. I'm not. And a lot of the best ones have much more precise methodologies. right? Very similar in poker when it comes to like solvers. Like a lot of the greatest players in the world are studying stuff that's way beyond the scope of what you see at a 2-5 no limit game in your local card room, right? But you could still be good enough to beat all those people, right? So you could be good enough to take enough money out of the DFS ecosystem with the blunt methodologies that I teach. But if your goal is to really be top 10 player in the world in DFS, like you have to take these concepts and now make them like absurdly more precise and way more efficient, right? So you could achieve that, but that's beyond that's not my goal. But if it is your goal, then great. If it's beyond the scope of what we talk about on this show. Let's see. Going through. Card fan says, "Is this a long goodbye?" No, it's a long hello. It's a long hell. Essentially, what I'm saying is that this is a new hello, right? I've been doing the show for 2 years, I think, and I'm saying, okay, let's reset. Let's go back to what it was. Pretend I'm starting from episode 1 and I haven't said the same thing over and over again. Okay, now everything is new again. Yeah, Trevor says the Red Chip Poker podcast. Yes, I've been listening to those as well, right? Yeah, and you're right. Some episodes are Matt, but yeah, Red Chip Poker was started by. I mean, it was co-owned by Ed Miller. So yeah, right. So I listen. I audio is my best tool. I don't necessarily care that much about the videos per se, but still, I've been going through those and going. I'm going relearning poker and going. Wow, like I'm learning very well, unstructured in this medium. And then realizing that, like, they're going over stuff that I could have gotten elsewhere if I wanted to. And I go, well, what's the difference between me and a lot of the people that may watch this show? I don't think I'm teaching well. I really don't think so. Are people talking about poker in the chat now? Right? I don't want to talk. The whole point of today wasn't supposed to be talking about poker. It's me talking about teaching methodologies more than anything. Neil Jaworski says, not sure you need to apologize, but I think this is great. I think I need to apologize. I do, at least. I think I speak for a lot of people when they say they've learned a lot from the show. Yes, but I think you could learn more. And I also think that you could learn even if you think you know the concept. It's weird to say that, right? You go, well, I already know what a projection is. I already know this thing. Why should I be here for a half an hour as you explain to someone else what a range of outcomes is, what a normal distribution is, right? Like that type of thing. I'm telling you it helps. I'm telling you it helps regardless, right? Because I've reread poker books that I've read again. I've like, dude, I remember back in 2002 reading books that had the same hand charts in it and the same exact, like almost I felt like reading the same book again. But you know what it did? Maybe remember stuff easier, right? And remember stuff quicker. Right? And I was so immersed in it that it wasn't boring to me. Just like, okay, I'll read this again. That's fine. Right? The more the merrier. So I should have that same attitude of like, well, who cares if I'm repeating the same thing again? Right? Even if you think you know, maybe you need to get it even more cemented in your mind. So I shouldn't be treating as if like once I mention something, it should never be mentioned again. Trevor said, Jordan, I started watching the show starting around week 3 of the NFL. Right. So not week 3 of the show ever existing. Says, you could be snippy, but I think you're solid. I don't think you have anything to apologize for. I learned a ton to see. I know a lot of people learn a ton, but I want to service as many people as possible. Right. Not just the people that could put through the snippiness and the type of people that are more, I would call it the immersion people. That's like, yeah, okay. The fact that he's yelling at this person, and maybe I don't understand why he's yelling at this person. Maybe I need to look up X, Y, and Z. Like you take the initiative to do that, so you're not asking stupid questions. But I don't think that should. I don't think that should be the scope of this show. I don't think the scope of the show to mean that you have to do enough research so you're not asking stupid questions. The point is for you to not have to do all that research. That this is the starting point, right? This is the unstructured starting point. Now, people are going to come in and they don't understand, you know, what do you mean by lineup construction? Well, the order that you put, you know, what do you mean by, you know, how does a running back score points? Like there's a scoring system in DFS. So it's very similar to, you know, you read the course, right? right? Ed Miller's The Course, whatever. Like basically the first part of the thing is like I'm not going to go through what hand beats what. I'm not going to go through some of the stuff. There's plenty of, go Google it, right? Like that type of stuff, right? But that line of where the stuff, the really basic stuff, I've been saying that line way too high. Where there's like all the other that I consider like too much of that to be basic and go Google it, right? So if you don't understand what a payout structure is, like, oh, what's the difference between first place and second place? It's like you must have just started playing DFS, right? I'm not gonna rehash how the lobby is organized, right? I'm not gonna rehash how baseball is scored, right? Right. I barely will rehash why correlated lineups in baseball are better, but I mean, some people may not understand that. They may go, "Oh yeah, that's why the correlation coefficient between baseball players are higher." And then they use that concept to other. Oh, well, how can I relate this to basketball or to football or to whatever? I shouldn't just be assuming that you know that, right? Because there are plenty of people where this may be the episode. Today's episode may be the starting point. 3 weeks from now, that may be their starting point. For Trevor, it was week 3 in NFL, right? And I said, yeah, go back and watch all of them. But I mean, how tenable is that to most people? It's not. Just like for me, like, dude, I'm that person that would listen to everything. And I'm with the poker stuff. I'm going, there's no goddamn way I could listen to everything. This is insane. It's absolutely insane. And the amount of poker content there is compared to DFS content it dwarfs it by like 50x, 100x. Like in DFS, I think it's probably untenable to watch all of my shows from the beginning, right? That's a picture of that times 100, and that's what the poker content is. So then what am I doing? Wataz says I'm still not going to ask any questions until I'm done with the old videos. I was watching 6 to 8 hours a day for a while, but down to 4 the past month. The answers are all in there. Yeah, the answer are. I mean. Wataz is right. The answers are all in there. But is everyone Wataz? What is? I don't even know if I'm ever saying that. What is? It could be what is. I'm going Wataz. Right? Right. And also, it's a lot of the episodes it's this day's episode. And that's the day I happen to go over some important thing with the tool. And it's just sitting there. And there's no descriptor on it. So how should I expect people to go back and just watch them all and figure out which ones are which, right? That's an awful way of teaching. That's why I'm apologizing. Now, you people in chat you're the nicest people. You're like, no, you don't have to apologize. I learned a lot from you. But I want to be better. I want to be better. I want to be better in DFS. I want to be better in poker. I should want to be a better teacher. So this is my way of saying I want to be a better teacher. Oh, okay. So I mean, I think that's the show. I mean, I don't know what else. I was going to get into. I guess we'll talk about it tomorrow. Unless you got any questions. But I say, oh, it's going to be all guided by questions in the chat, everything like that. I'm like, okay, well, we're done. Like there's my thing and whatever. So if you got anything you want to talk about in the chat, feel free to let me know. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. I did want to talk about a very high level, not advanced or anything, but a high level concept to get back to, especially to recenter ourselves, especially after reading some of Ed Miller's poker work of like where the money comes from in DFS. Because I think that's overall an important like high level concept to understand before you even like why are you making the lineups the way you are? Where you're trying to make the lineups the way you are, like I'm relating it to poker. So your lineups have a higher than its fair share of equity in the contest, right? And how do you do that? Where does the money come from? So I do want to talk about that tomorrow, which may be a little bit longer of a conversation. That may be like a half an hour or whatever long. But then when we come back on Monday, like we'll have Mondays with McCool, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is basically it's unstructured learning, and it's guided by you in the YouTube chat, guided by the questions that come in, questions at theoryofdfs.com. If you have a question about DFS strategy, the theory, the tools here at RotoGrinders, right? The content here. Well, we have, Slate IQ, simulation outputs. I don't understand what they exactly mean. Okay, that's fine, right? Oh, I'm just starting to get into this sport. Can you relate it to that? Okay. I played the contest yesterday, and I played dude, I'm not a big fan in like lineup analysis type of thing. But if you wanted to email, because you'd have to email because you can't post like links in the YouTube chat. But if you want to email, it's like, well, I played this contest yesterday. See, the thing about that is that it's very hard to analyze without me having played the slate, because we can't really go back to like what were the projected and projected ownership and blah, 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 blah. But if you have a way of making, some type of hand history type of thing where you could explain why you did X, Y, and Z, and was that the right way of thinking, I guess we could do that. But I'd still much rather relate it to like a current slate that hasn't been played, or something like that. And because the context of like, well, why did someone play this slate in NBA yesterday? It's like, well, if I didn't play the slate in NBA yesterday and didn't realize that at 8:30 this guy got ruled out, so then you move this guy there, and this guy was rejected well, but then like I may not understand the context of that if I hadn't played the slate. But I mean, hey, I'd rather have more than less. So if you want to send, was this lineup good type of questions in, you can. I'm allowed. You're not going to get yelled at. You're not get scolded, right? But I may not go over the question. Just understand. And me not going over the question is not me saying that you had a stupid question. It's that I really have no context, enough context for that specific thing to be useful enough. But hey, if I get 10 mails a day of is this lineup good, and 9 of them I can't really talk about, but one I can't, then I'll do that. And if I don't respond back, that's not because I'm mad at you or whatever. There's no I've no way of giving you any good advice that's worth anything, because I don't know. Was this guy over-owned? I don't know. Was he under-owned? Was this contest? Did this contest have overlay? What was the payout structure? Was this a flatter payout structure? Was this there's so many more variables that, unless you can provide all of that, which may be a tough task, it's very hard to talk about. But I don't want to stop you, right? That's the thing. I'm putting these caveats of don't do this and don't do that. No, do everything. Worst case scenario is that I don't respond, and because I can't. Right, because there's no really way for me to give you an answer that would be helpful, right, in some aspect. And if I don't respond back, I'm not an asshole. Only because I am just expecting to get more of them. James Aguirre, do you think there's any strategic advantage in understanding the DK and FD salary algorithm? No, I don't think so. What advantage? What do you mean under it? They're not projecting players. They're not doing that with typically their salary algorithm is all based on well, they have a lot of manual inputs. So understand that when a guy's in and guy's out, and they know this, and they're going to move this guy up, like a person is doing that. Other than that, like a lot of times it's based around like previous projected ownership, and like if a lot of people played this guy at this price, last slate, they're going to bump it up by X, some type of factor, but it's not in relate there. Draftkings and Fanduel isn't running like their own projection model necessarily. I mean, they are, but the salary algorithm is less involved with that than anything else. That's why sometimes like you'll see someone priced up because a little bit more due to matchup, or less due to matchup, or one guy's in and one guy's out. But a lot of times they're not doing it very well, right? The whole point is exploiting that. You're exploiting the salary algorithm to get more points than you should for that price, to get a higher relative value based on salary. Okay, that ultimately our first level of DFS is playing against the pricing. Our second level is playing against the other opponents, and then our third level is playing what our opponents are doing to exploit the salary pricing of the site. Right, what you think they're going to do based on what the sites are going to do, but right, and exploiting that. So that's what that is. So the first thing is, Christian McCaffrey's minimum price. Okay, well, he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be. He's probably half off, right? If he was, right? Obviously, he's 9K this week. And then you go, oh well, I stand to get way more points for 4K versus another 4K guy. Some 4K guy is projected 8 median, and Christian McCaffrey has 24 median for 4K. It's like, yeah, I think I want those points, right? And then the second level is, well, how many other people are going to have those points, right? What's the relative value of Christian McCaffrey? He's 90% owned, and you have to go, is those 24 points worth at 4K at that ownership worth having that relative value, right? Where's the line where he's positive or negative leverage, right? Doesn't mean you don't take him, just means that it will affect the rest of your lineup. That's the next thing. And then the third thing is, well, everyone can see that Christian McCaffrey is underpriced. He may be 90% owned. How many people don't play him because he's too high owned? Does that lower the ownership, right, of the player that you think? Or is he going to be over like that? Now you're reacting to what you think other people are going to do. And that's the third level. But at the first, like whether or not in understanding the salary algorithm, I don't think it matters. You should be starting out, especially if you sign up for RotoGrinders, get a combo premium subscription. Click on the link in the description. You get $10 off your first month. And you'll get our model. You'll get our models. Unless you have your own model, right? Then you could just use our tools. But you'll get our projections. So other than that, like what do you have to understand about the algorithm? What it knows something that our model doesn't? Everyone's trying to do the same thing, right? Oh well, DK had, because you'll get these things. This is what bad players say. Okay, this is what bad players say. A guy will be underpriced, right? Let's use the extreme example, Christian McCaffrey, 4K. Let's misprice him at 4K for this slate. Then everyone plays him, right? And then Christian McCaffrey has like an 8-point game, right? Or, I mean, even like last slate was kind of a floor game. What, he got like 13 points or something? And you know what people will say? Draftkings knew. Draftkings knew. They knew something. Their computer algorithms, their program, they knew something. That's why they priced him so low, because they knew that he would have a bad game. They didn't know. They didn't know. The Draftkings doesn't know. That doesn't exist. Okay? So don't think like that. The same thing when a guy is overpriced, right? You take Jacoby Myers, 7,800. And you look at that price and you go, why the hell is he 7,800? Like, he should be like 5K. Right? Why is he 7,800? And then no one plays him. He's like 2% owned, right? Maybe some people think the other way. They may play him for the other reason. I think DraftKings knows. I think they know. Why did they price him at 7,800? They must know something. I'm not saying they necessarily know the future, but something about the matchup is something about something. There's something that we don't have in our models that makes them know. Their models are way better, and they know. And that's why they're priced at 7. And then what happens is Myers goes out, goes 11 for 150 and 2 touchdowns for a career game. DK knew. I knew it. DraftKings knew. They don't know. I'm telling you, they don't know. Okay? It's just an error. The pricing is going to be inefficient. And that's the first level of attack that you have when you play DFS, is exploiting inefficient pricing by the sites, right? The thing is that a large portion of your opponents also do that pretty well, right? They may not do that well on the edges, right? Look, $7,500 player really should be 72, or $7,500 player really should be 86. Sometimes on the edges. But I can tell you, if Christian McCaffrey was 4K on this coming slate, a mint price, there aren't going to be many of your opponents that are going to miss that, right? You're not going to go into your double ups probably and find Christian McCaffrey 50% owned. Like, no, there's not that many bad players, right? He may end up being 97% owned at 4K in your double ups, and you go, wow, what did those 3% of people do? Well, those are the people that are paid that now you just got a rake reduction. Right? In those structured contests, why aren't you playing a double up? Why aren't you playing a guy that projects for 6x median in NFL? in the running back slot that almost everyone could identify. That has a salary adjusted plus minus of like, what would that even be? Salary adjusted plus minus of what, 14, 16, something like that? Like that would be what? I mean, dude, even at that price in NFL, like you probably played them in all your lineups anyway, even at 97% owned, possibly. Right? You're starting to get you're going to get into efficient ranges there. But that has nothing to do with exploiting the salary algorithm. I mean, you're exploiting. That's how you do it anyway. I mean, that's what you're doing in general. Trying to get everyone could still spend only $50K on the salary, and we're trying to get the most amount of points and the highest range of outcomes for that $50K. And you're exploiting your opponent. Like, let's say we have like head-to-heads, right, where there's no progressive change in payout. Like the number one exploit is just playing a higher range of out. You're in poker, it would be, you would say you're playing a stronger range of hands than your opponent. You're exploiting your opponent's proclivity to play a weaker range. That's essentially what you're doing in head-to-heads. All you have to do is play a stronger range, and you will profit. But now, with the rake involved, if you're paying 9 to 11% rake on head-to-heads, they need to play you have to play a stronger range of lineups, like a range of hands, that is stronger to even beat the rake. So if you're just playing a 1v1 against your head-to-head opponent that has a half a point difference in projection, you're not beating the rake. You have a very slightly stronger range, but not to make up at 9 to 11% rake. You need to have a substantially stronger range. You need to play against dummies, right? For that. So that's. I mean, we'll talk about it tomorrow. That's where the money comes from. Okay? But the first thing you have to do is just be able to identify that. So having projections and comparing them to price is like that's table stakes. That's the first thing you need to do. You have to have a way to convert player names into numbers. That's the very first thing. We talk about in theory of DFS. I talk about in chapter 3 in player selection. Unless you're I don't know, Small Wonder, right? Wasn't that a show with the Vicky, the robot girl, right? Unless you're Lieutenant Commander Data, unless you're an android, right? Not an Android phone, but an Android person. You probably don't have the brain power to weigh million data point sets and regress and weigh them properly to turn player names into numbers. Ultimately, that's what people are kind of doing. They don't realize they're doing it when they go, I think this guy's a little too cheap, I'm going to play him. Oh, this guy's in a bad matchup, I'm going to not play. Like, that is what they're kind of doing, but they're doing it they're doing the bluntest way possible by trying to use the human brain. And some people aren't that bad at doing it that way, especially the most obvious ones. If Christian McCaffrey was 4K, do I need a model to tell me that he's probably like extremely valuable to use? No, I don't, right? So there are plenty of people that play on instinct, that actually play, especially the cash games. I mean, even GPPs play very well instinctually. They don't know. They don't convert player names into numbers. They don't think they are. They technically are. They're doing it in their head. I think this guy's a good play for that price. I think that based on all these variables, but the model, if you build your own model or you use the one here at RotoGrinders, like we're doing that for you, right? That is what we're doing. And feel free to, if you don't agree, say, oh, I'm going to change this a little. Oh, fine. If you want to do that, if you want to change these projections to whatever you want, do it whatever you want. But you still need to find a way to change player names into numbers and then compare those numbers to the price. That's like the first level of DFS. How do I get the largest range of the best range of outcomes, higher range of outcomes for 50K than my opponents? That's basic. That's DFS 101 from a conceptual level. But I think your question is more of like, well, if they price a guy at 5,200, what does that mean? What does that mean? He's underpriced, but Do they know something? Like that's what it comes off to me, at least. I'm not saying that's a stupid question, but I don't think there's anything necessarily to be gleaned specifically off the pricing, unless you have something to compare it to. Okay, let's see. Anything else before we get out of here? Oh, Trevor with a quick question. How are you doing in PrizePicks? I'm not doing as much in PrizePicks because I haven't been paying attention to NBA. Because the thing about the NBA props is that you have to pay attention for NBA props. Because there's always 700 people on the injury report. So NBA player props is the type of thing. If you're playing NBA DFS, most of your work in NBA DFS is going to be like I'm in the Eastern time zone. So if the slate's at 7, right? And then there's a 10:30 game also. Like there's a bunch, they're all laid out that way. Like NBA DFS is a thing that you like you start really kind of start at 6. Right? 6 p.m., maybe 5:30. You wait for the 5:30 injury report. And then you start strategizing, and then you start building lineups, and then whatever. And then by 7. You could probably do it quicker than that. You could probably dude, you could have an efficient enough process to show up 15 minutes before. I mean, you're cutting it close, but you could do it. But that's for DFS, right? But for props, a lot of times you're doing it earlier. A lot of times for props, you're looking the night before even, right? You're looking when you're trying to get it as quickly as when they go up. But the thing is that you have to be aware of all the injury and rest situations and who's going to play and whatever. Sometimes they don't even have those props up if something's really questionable, right? And then from there, then you have to adjust. Then you go, oh, okay, this guy's out and this guy's in. Let's see what the prize pick lines are. Or you kind of make like a percentage estimate. They have props up, but you see that Jimmy Butler is questionable. Like it's quite possible that he does sit. Now, obviously, since prop lines are up, they think more likely that he's not going to sit, or they think he's going to sit, and that's why the props are the way they are. Like you have to assess that type of thing for NBA, so it's tough to do unless you're actively doing so. So that's something that you would have to monitor. So I've not been doing NBA props. I'll do NBA props on days that I play NBA DFS more so than anything. NFL you just do early in the week, Tuesday or Wednesday. The thing is that on PrizePicks is that as the weeks go by, the plus EV spots get less and less and less and less, significantly less. So like the first week, it was like you felt like you were at a all-you-can-eat buffet. Second week, you were at a buffet. You were at a decent buffet. And then by like you were fine. And then like the first week, 2 weeks, you could find 30, 35 spots that are off enough that you should be wheeling them around and round robining them. Then by week 4, it's like, I could find 18 spots. Then by week 8, it's like I could find 9 spots. Right? And then by week 15, it's like I could find 3 spots. Right? Like that's what the progression kind of has been. Right? Or you have to monitor a little bit more and see news and kind of snap off things. You can do that. But if you're looking to do it a little bit more passively, like NFL, it's gotten much more efficient later in the season. I'm assuming by next season it'll happen the same way. Then in the beginning it'll be awful, and it'll get more efficient as time goes on. That's why to me, baseball is the best because it's every day and it's very static. It's not the slate and the lineups and everything aren't as dynamic. They don't change much. So for baseball, to me, baseball is easy to essentially wait up late at night to like 12:30, 1 in the morning. Wait for them to put up the strikeout prop. They won't put up all the props on PrizePicks, and then use the Derek Carty's the bat and just blast them there. Blast them until they move, and then wake up in the morning, and then once they start putting up some more, like the pitching outs and the hits allowed, and then they start putting up kind of like the total bases stuff and the hits, and a lot of times you can't find much there. And then you do that, and then you're good. You're most likely not going to find anything, come the afternoon. So you're done. Even if you didn't play the MLB slate that night, you're good. Right. So that's what I've been doing. That's why it's mostly finding the spots in NFL on like Tuesdays. And then other than that, and then there's not much to talk about when you only find 3 or 4 spots. It's like, okay, there, found them. And then the next day they move, and now they're all gone. And now what's there to talk about? When there's 20 of them? When there's 20, and then there's more to talk about. That's what you kind of should be doing. That's what I found, at least. You'll find stuff in MMA. Like I'll take a look at Monday, Tuesday for MMA also. But you don't have to spend that much time on it. And also you don't find many spots. You just don't find many spots, and there's not much to talk about. But if you have questions about PrizePicks, about the player prop type of sites, even sports betting if you want, just send them in. Right? That's what the show is, right? At least Tuesday through Thursday, right? It's up to you. It's up to you guys. Repeat the same questions. Ask the stupid questions. I don't care. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. And we'll go over things again and again. This is the place for unstructured learning. If you want the place for structured learning, get the Theory of DFS. Theoryofdfs.com. 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. That's the first course. How to think like a professional DFS player. And then the second course is how to apply profitable DFS strategies for advanced players, which also comes with custom tools for Microsoft Excel that I use, that James McCool has developed. So I would suggest getting these. Getting these regardless, right? Get the structured learning, theoryofdfs.com. But if you want to come every day, if you want to send a question once in a while, this is the place for unstructured learning. And I'll probably still be snippy at times. I will be. I get it's a personality flaw. It'll happen from time to time. And what I want is accountability. I want the regulars in the chat. I see Wataz. I see Margie Donyeezy, right? I see Trevor in there and Craig. I see a lot of regs in there. Kickstart said Mr. Richard. If I'm being snippy, if I'm being a little too snippy, put me in my place in the chat. Go. Hey, Jordan. This is the guy. Let's just go over this again, okay? Remember, unstructured learning. So give me a thumbs up at least on your way out the door. So tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more high level, and email in questions at theoryofdfs.com. There's an NBA slate tonight. We got a Thursday night football show going on later tonight. So hit that notification bell to know when we go live. I got NFL stuff tomorrow. Game theory show for premium members, and then it's off to the new year, end of the football season, NBA, which is always a pain in the ass, and me answering your DFS strategy questions and not scolding you, hopefully, on the Mondays through Fridays, 11 o'clock Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.